trying to better themselves.
Right.
Why? The first thing they're going to do is shit on somebody who comes
Why
back
is
to the
it
station,
not okay?
that knowledge is a threat to them.
Why is it not okay to be into the job? Why is it when one or two guys come back from a conference and they're all fired up and they're ready to go, guys will turn around and they'll shit on them? Right? Why is it not okay to be into the job? Hey guys, good afternoon, good evening. Ready?
Let's start over.
All right.
Take two.
Hey everybody, it's Rob, National Fire Radio.
See how that
we
works?
are here tonight in the studio with Elkhart Brass. Hey.
Do it. Who from Elkhart Brass? Let's talk about it. Jerry Herbst.
Jerry Herbst. Hey.
Chris
One
Martin.
and only Chris Martin.
Yeah, I will tell you, we are, Rob and I are blown away that you guys are here. We're excited to have you. This little platform, National Fire Radio, just in the year and a half that we've been doing this, we've had some interesting characters and some great brothers come through here. And tonight's one of those honors for us to have two guys that really have a name in the industry, that work with some of the biggest names in the industry. And you guys are part of that movement. And we're excited to have you here tonight. Thank you.
Oh, we're proud to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Yeah,
This is so cool. So, little backstory. Chris had reached out a little while back, and we chatted on the phone. And it's fun. You know, we talk about the fire service getting in the circles of people that share common goals and commonality. And Chris and I had a phone conversation just because, you know, I liked what he was doing on Instagram. He was following us, and he liked what we were doing. And it was just kind of doing some, you know, your own type of content, authenticity, you know, things that were a little bit different, not reposting and resharing. It was more original content. And Chris and I had a fantastic conversation, and we talked about it just before we got on air. And that really set the relationship for you guys being here today, because we fell in line with the same beliefs and kind of nuggets about the fire service. So thanks for joining us, guys. I mean,
thanks for having us.
This is a good commitment for you to be here. Jerry, you flew in, and I just couldn't thank you guys enough. So thanks for being here. I want to jump into the story and talk about, you know, Elkhart Brass. I want to talk about Brass Tacks, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with, that marketing campaign. But I think maybe what we need to do is just start at the beginning, you know, not too far back, but maybe just a little background on how you guys got to where you are today. And Jerry, maybe you want to roll it out, brother.
Sure.
Share some stories.
Be happy to. You know, Elkhart is a company, and again, not a pitch, more to just, I guess, throw some cred out. Is a company that's been melting metal and making products that put water on fire for a long time, over 100 years, well over 100 years.
Wow.
And I've been associated with them since 2006 in a bunch of different roles, but a great company, an icon in the industry type approach. We've gone through some structural changes. We're part of Safe Fleet now, which brings us with some other iconic companies. Was actually a great umbrella to put us under. You've got Elkhart and ROM, FRC, and Foam Pro, all under the Safe Fleet brand. But our world, Chris and I are primarily driven in the municipal fire world, and that's a big part of Elkhart. And really the foundation of the company was kind of built, you know, toe-to-toe with the American firefighter. That's right. The products live there. And really, you know, we'll talk probably a little deeper about this, but, you know, our brand, our challenge is constantly to have a personality associated with our brand, and it's our people that are in the field. You know, we've got people all across the country that are flowing water 60, 70, 80 times a year with fire departments. They're, you know, in turnout gear, and that's what we're about. We drive spec and try and be part of providing solutions to what some people may realize is a problem, some people may not.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that it's amazing in today's day and age that a lot of the stuff that's happening out there with nozzles, hoses, and pump operations are still a little bit of the old wives' tales and a lot of misinformation. And you know, I know you were talking about it a little bit before, because we were talking about Dan Schultz from Old Engine 7 Sign Company, but like the class that you did up in Dutchess, and how many people came back from that class with a positive experience and just kind of being like, wow, like, you know, this was great. I learned a lot, and maybe I should have known this, but now we know it. So I think that's like just kind of awesome that this company's able to do that, you know?
Yeah, I'd say every year we do like an instructor shirt for FDIC, and it always kind of has some clever saying on the back.
Right.
And still one of my favorites I think we should just bring back as a normal offering is like, just because water's coming out of the end of the nozzle doesn't mean you're doing it right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Well said.
You know, that, what's the famous saying? Fire goes out, nobody gets hurt. I put it on social media now, take a selfie, and we go back and do it again tomorrow, and we do the same thing until inevitably you're going to lose, or you're not going to have the flow you think you have, and you're going to be in trouble, right? But how often are people actually acknowledging that that's something going on?
Oh, you're right.
You know,
You're right. Hydraulics and nozzle and hose work, like this is a craft, and it's product that works hand in hand. You know, the right size line with the right size nozzle pumped at the right pressure, will give you the winning combination. And I think it's one of those things, and I think we hit on it before too, where it's one of those things that we take for granted that the guy at the pump panel knows what he's doing, or the guy on the nozzle knows what he's doing, when in fact, a lot of times there's a miscue, or they're not performing correctly, or hitting the dots, or connecting the dots as they should be in those situations. So, it's one of those things that I think needs more training. I'm floored by how much training you guys do in the field, Jerry. The traveling you do was mind-numbing when we were talking about that, and so on. But the conferences, you guys support a lot of the conferences. Let's chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, we're vested in that. Our world is where the end user interfaces with the product, and that's where we get our what I like to call mental protein. Chris runs our product side of things, and it's funny when we're in the field, we're looked at, as Chris and Jerry, but we have completely different functions, really.
Yeah.
I may be doing more talking, Chris may be doing more listening. The ideas that we get, the evolutions that our product go through, come from interaction with our end users. We like to live where the firefighter interfaces with fire. That's where that weapon is used.
Absolutely.
This smoothbore nozzle here, and that's where it has to work. And I say this in a lot of classes I do. We've got an industry that tends to be supply side obsessed. We put tens of millions of dollars into infrastructure for water supplies, and $500,000, $600,000 into a rig, and all that is great. But that's not usually where it fails. It usually fails where one or two guys or gals are flowing somewhere between 150 and 200 gallons a minute, and something goes wrong. That's where it needs to work. So, that's where we like to live. So our approach to that market is educational. We want to be in the field pushing hallways with people that are using the product and getting things a bit more accurate, because it's like you were talking about from the hydraulic standpoint.
Yeah.
You look at me, and I'll admit it, I'm the dinosaur. I'm 40 years in the firehouse this year, right? And the old rule of thumb, what did you learn when you took your first course? 50, 80, and 100. 50 smooth bores and appliances, 80 master streams, and 100 copy tips. That's your world. Water came out. Sooner or later on that curve, you won. A lot of those stories ended with, at least nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, that's the time to start asking questions, right? But, there's this movement you were talking about. One of the shirts we did is it's a movement. It's not a moment, because you've got a much deeper educated firefighter with respect to the creation of an effective fire stream, which makes more sense. That's who's using it. The old thing of, the chauffeur's going to get it right, or the boss calls for the right line. Hopefully they do, but if it's your weapon, you need to be a little deeper invested into exactly what's going on there, because you're the one that's expected to make it work.
I like it.
And I'd say like how those people are getting their knowledge, back to like wrapping up the conference circuit.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
I don't know, we kind of dubbed them like micro conferences, not to, belittle that name or whatever, but it is. It's what they say, like the perfect size tribe is like 150 people.
Right.
Right. And that's a lot of what these conferences are, is it's 150, 200, maybe 500 on the high end, like a Portland or an H-Rock, of just squared away, dialed in firefighters there to learn and soak it all in, whether it's engine, truck, leadership, fitness, whatever it is.
Sure.
But people are seeking this out now. I mean, you're seeing this now,
they're dialed
like an
in.
influx of these conferences popping up, right? Like we talked earlier with like brass tacks, like, we didn't estimate kind of the response we got. And it's not to say how awesome this content is, it's to say there's a need for this out there, right? Just like these conferences, like, wow, all these conferences are popping up. Why are they popping up? Well, because people want the information. They want access to the instructors and the knowledge. And I saw this on Facebook from so-and-so, and now I can go learn it from him in a day for a $200 class or whatever, right? He's coming to my area. So the sharing of information and the access to information has 100% changed than how you got out of your IFSTA book and Fire One class, right?
I thought that in our conversation earlier, we kind of sat down and had some dinner, but like one of the things that came out, I think it was you that said it, is that doing these classes, like you didn't come up with brass tacks and hard facts to become a vehicle to sell product.
Yeah.
It became something for education, and that when you had the success with it, like I think other businesses would have been like, we are going to make so much money now. This is going to be awesome. And you guys, your approach was, whoa, there's a huge gap out there for people that are thirsty for this information.
Absolutely. I mean,
and we've got to actually double down and get the information out there even that much harder. And that blew me away.
And even like peeling it back, like obviously we've had good success with our new XD nozzle line, but the first series of brass tacks didn't have any XD nozzles in it. It wasn't out yet. Right. It was still the old 20-year-old legacy one. So it's just the content was there about what was going on. And that's what guys and gals soak up. It's I want to go watch this for 3 to 5 minutes and then let's go do a drill on it. Right. Or it's morning lineup and we got the rundown for the day. And hey, we're gonna watch this quick video instead of watching the weather on our TV screen or whatever it is, you know.
Well, who better to learn from than the people that are making the product, right? You know what your nozzles can do. You know what your appliances can do. And so, you know, the concept of educating the end consumer is a no-brainer. Yep. Unfortunately, there's always a big disconnect in any industry where people don't see that. And for you guys, for tonight, sitting around and telling some stories and capturing really the essence of what Elkhart does, it's exactly that. It's educating the end consumer so that they can make that decision if this nozzle is the right nozzle for them and to use it correctly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that really is the foundation of the approach. You know, most of our people are firefighters or have been, and we're not teaching tactics. Right. There's a difference in subject matter. It's relevant regardless of whether it's a new product or an old product. An effective fire stream is an effective fire stream. It needs to be enough water based on the fire that you're at, right? And you need to be able to move it to the seat of the fire and solve the problem. That hasn't changed and really never will. But that's where the assumptions need to be dispelled. And we I call it the epiphany. You know, when we're in the field, we're not saying, hey, you know, like Stretch would say, buy the Model A or get the black one or the red one because your cousin Vinny sells it. He's going to make a couple bucks. It's not like that. It's how about do due diligence. If you're going to do an evaluation, look at every design that's made. It has nothing to do with brand.
Right.
And does it work with your world? You know, I mean, if you're run with 3 or 4 deep versus 5 or 6 deep, your world's different. Okay, so somebody else's solution isn't yours. You have to put some effort into it. You can get into the neighborhood on social media or different things that are available to you, but you still have to make it your own. And that's, I think, those rules of thumbs we've become too reliant on it, and it started to be a problem. Evolutions in hose, evolutions in flows, concentration on, you know, a lower pressure, higher flow because it equates to less nozzle reaction. You know, that was driven by what? Reduction in staffing, the fact that, you know, whether it be career or volunteer site, everybody needs help at work unless you're in a major urban environment where you're getting 10, 15 engines on a box eventually. So those realities drove it. And as you go deeper into that, when you get a little bit more into the weeds, when you start to study the package, because it is a package, right? It all has to work together. Mm-hmm. And that's where we started to see problems. Okay, not all hose works well with 50 PSI nozzles. You get whip conditions. So how do we overcome that? And some people can get real deep, some people can't. So it was incumbent upon us to take an educational approach that says, here are the options, acclimate them to your world. We're blessed enough to be able to share what works as on a large scale. We're a large manufacturer. We share the information of what goes out of the factory with respect to the most tip and pressure and that type of a thing, because that is relevant. And if you're building a case for change, it needs to be relevant. It can't be based on opinion or emotion. You have to have data that makes sense that you actually evaluate.
I want to jump on that real quick too.
Yeah, please, because
we didn't talk about this earlier, but I think this is something pretty cool we're going to be dropping by the end of the year. Is kind of like when we do a class, at the end of the class, we kind of say, What's the one thing we can bring to a class that the best engine guy or gal can't? We know what leaves our door every day, right? But is that a good picture of the industry? Not necessarily, right? It's what people are buying in the last 2 or 3 years. So later this month, we're going to be putting out what we're calling the Fire Flow Survey, okay? So this will be something we'll put out on social media. You'll be able to take the survey. It's anonymous. You'll get a respondent number back. Keep the number. If you take the survey, you'll be entered in on a raffle to win nozzles for your whole engine company.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be like 3 nozzles and a ram we're going to be giving away if you enter it, if you take the survey, right? You'll be entered in the pot. But here's the point of the survey, right? So there's a lot of companies do a lot of surveys, right? But what do they do with the information?
Nothing.
They don't share it, right? They hide it. They hoard it and they lord it, right? So this is basically going to be kind of like a for us, by us kind of survey, right? So the survey will be about 35 questions. You go on, you'll take it, take you probably 6-8 minutes, take the survey. It'll be broken down by demographic. But the questions we're going to ask are, what type of nozzles do you use? You know, smooth bore, fixed flow, selectable flow, automatic. What's your target flow for 1 3/4? What's your target flow for 2.5?
Right.
I don't know. You know, what type of hose load do you run? Right? Things like that, where in some general questions, we can kind of start painting a picture of what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely.
Okay. And then we make this an annual thing. So the 2019 Fire Flow Survey, here's the trends. Okay. So then we do this 5 years from now. The 2024 survey says this. Oh, wow. Like 5 years ago, everybody was into this. And now people are transitioning into this. But to go back to what Jerry was saying, if you're doing a study, right, we love data. It's everywhere, right? So here's a really excellent point that you can use in your study, in your case to make change, of saying like, hey, most people, according to the survey, are using this or that, right? But instead of like gathering this information and just keeping it, you know, for our benefit, no, we're going to put it back out.
Yeah.
So same thing. Like if I'm an engine instructor, I can say, hey, 80% of people are using this tip or that tip, like from what we were able to find, you know, from the findings. So that'll be coming out later this month.
Like,
yeah.
And that goes to what it's all about, transparency, right? Like you're going to build a survey to follow the trends. So over the course of time, right, not only is it going to help you figure out how to navigate with the end user to understand what the popularity is, how the curves are going, but it's also going to paint a picture about the American Fire Service too. Yep. And it's when you're putting out the answers to the survey and giving the numbers of the findings, it's total transparency. And that speaks to the ethics, the authenticity of what you're doing and your drive to make the fire service better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it goes to the same end. There's many layers. There's many components to the system. We're a piece of it. It all needs to work together, you know, for the win. And you know, the best practices that we can share. That's how you get that information, because all that's part of the system. You know, no, we don't make hose. We don't do all that. We don't have the answers to those questions, and I can't say the best thing for your fire department or mine, right? So, if you can approach it with that all-encompassing core package of data that it takes to make an educated decision based on your world, to us, that's a win. You know, sometimes we sell product as a result of that. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't even know. But it's relevant enough. It's like the justification that we look at when we look at brass tacks, hard facts. You know, the analytics that I study and Chris studies isn't, you know, we got 17 likes on this. We go much deeper than that. It's minutes viewed. The minutes viewed add relevance to the content.
Right.
And you know, our last analytics are better part of a year old at almost 6 years of constant viewing. That's minutes viewed. That's people staying on looking at that subject matter that long, which tells us it's needed.
Yeah.
That wasn't
no doubt
prompted by us. It's you can click off at any time you want.
Right.
So, and you know, I shared earlier, when we first launched season 1, you know, when you started seeing posts like, Group B, watch this in anticipation of a discussion the next time we're on shift, that's a home run. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully you're having it prior to, like we were saying, we had a mishap in a call, chauffeur screwed it up or something, that created it, but let's get it ahead of time, right? Yep. And there's, engine's cool again, right? We say it all the time.
Yeah, engine's cool again.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's, for years it was chuck and rescue and nothing's wrong with that, but how did Brian coined it? When you start seeing more pictures of nozzle and hose packages on social media than you do burnt-up helmets.
Burnt-up helmets, you're starting to make a difference.
You're making a difference.
Yeah, it's kind of this perfect storm of, I don't know, it's almost like this back-to-basics approach. And we've heard that for a long time in the fire service, but it is. It's back to, it's just my craft. I'm a journeyman. You hear these terms now, and I'm honing it. And water on the fire is the basic function, right?
Absolutely.
Everything's there to support that.
That's right.
So,
it's kind of, and we respect that, how you guys are structured, very culturally driven, and that mirrors well with us because our personalities are driven by that. And the cultural aspect has not changed. You want to do the job, you want to do it well. I mean, that's your challenge. I mean, what did you say when you signed up, you want to be famous for creating cellar holes, or you want your guys high-fiving and fist bumping
we push each other every second of the day.
Make a nice hit
to
on
be better.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and that's what it's about. Here's tools that can help you be better at it, which means we all come home.
Yeah. I love the understanding, though, of educating us, educating me, Rob, Sebi, right, and the rest of the fire world about nozzles and proper water flow and so on. Brass tacks, hard facts. That is your animal. You guys created that concept. And Jerry, you just alluded to it, the amount of views and focal point of conversation it's become in firehouses. Can we talk about the backstory about brass tacks a little bit, Chris? Maybe the backstory.
Yeah.
I love the little, like, how you got the name and so on. I just think it really paints a picture of what you guys represent.
Right. So we kind of had this discussion at our booth at FDIC with Brian Brush, of all people, and Brian and I have now become like very good friends.
Yeah.
And at the time, I really didn't know the guy, and I always kind of jab him. I'm like, hey, we gotta sit down with Brian Brush and talk about something. I go, oh yeah, like he's the ladders guy, right?
Nice.
Like I've seen him throwing ladders in Colorado. Nice. I'm like, you're the ladders guy, bro. And he's like, so that's our little inside joke.
Sure.
But he's like, hey man, like, not all, all of us have kids now and we can't travel as much. Is there a way we could maybe like capture some training, on video? And my wheels immediately, like, the light went on and they're turning. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Because most manufacturer videos are something like, this is the Model 1. If you don't use the Model 1, your fires aren't going to go out, right? Like, we know that's not true, right? And firemen can sniff that out pretty fast if it's not authentic, right? So then we came up like, all right, how do we execute this thing? So like a good, the attention span or the length of a song is about what we have, right? 3 to 5 minutes. Longer than that, they're going to click off, right? Shorter than that, we can't get the whole message through. So it's like, all right, well, let's do like 3 to 5 minute topics, and we'll reach out to the instructor network that basically we've just made. We're friends. We're personal friends with all these people, So as opposed to us delivering the message, bring some credibility to the table of having, some squared away engine instructors talking about this. So we went and had, we ended up filming these in Minnetonka, Minnesota, of all places. Yeah. So my old fire chief, where I work part-time, relocated and became the chief of Minnetonka. Jerry went there and did a class. And Jerry's doing a Know Your Flow class for Chief Vance, and there's cameras rolling around and drones and stuff. And Jerry's like, what's going on? And John's like, well, we got a guy that's like into video, don't worry about it. All right, whatever, And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks pass, and this guy by the name of Brian Kerr, Brian sends a video to Jerry saying like, hey, here's what I filmed for your class. And it was an awesome video of like a Know Your Flow class. We ended up using.
Created a loop. We were in it at our FDIC booth for a couple
of
years.
Text over it, and we're like, this stuff's really good.
Very high quality.
Nice. So it was kind of like very serendipitous. Is like, Brian, like, we're talking about this instructor video thing, and like, all right, well, we can make this happen. We know the guys, we know the content, and then I kind of like look over, and the loop's playing in the booth. I'm like, we gotta call this guy.
Yep, I got a guy.
Let's call this guy. And so, you know, that's the reality. Like, you know, anytime you're filming something, whether it's for your fire department, like training division, or your side hustle, or whatever it is, like, it's a process, right? And a lot of times what we find, like a lot of people, I'm sure, is you hire an ad agency, an outside company, and they come in and film. You spend half of the day saying, like, you know, firefighters talk like this, or show this, don't show this. And you don't
they're not
always
in touch.
get there.
Right.
You know, you always don't get there.
Right.
So the beauty of this was Brian Kerr, and that Brian also works for Minnetonka Fire Department and is a training officer for
And
them.
he gets it.
So now the guy, like, doing all the editing is doing it from the perspective of how I would train a firefighter on this. So, like, hey, I'll throw an animation video in to maybe clear this up or paint the picture better. And that's really kind of the home run linchpin of this whole thing was it's great content, but it was very authentic, and it really was filmed and edited where a lot of people missed the mark, right, Sebi, on the editing? Shout out to that.
Oh, yeah, shout out. Without him, we got nothing. We barely have anything as it is, but
that's where the pull through. That's where you frost it,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the whole story of it. So we did season 1. I don't know, we had almost 40 some episodes, and when we did season 2, and we had I think we're up to like 71, 72 episodes now. We're kind of got some stuff in the back we've been kicking around to keep it going, but
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love everything about it. It's quick, it's to the point, and it really paints a picture of understanding. It's not, it's absolutely in touch with what we want to see and want to hear. And kudos to you guys. I mean, I think it's great, and anybody listening or following our platform, I'm sure knows all about brass tacks, hard facts, but if you're living under a rock and you don't,
Google it up.
Yeah, Google it up, because it's definitely worth the watch, and you're going to end up watching one right after another.
you mentioned on the name. So when we were kind of like, what do we call this thing?
Yeah.
So we used to have this old company newsletter in like the 50s and 60s, and we've got some copies floating around. When I'll get back next week, I'll post them up on our social media channels.
Yeah,
on
it'd be
Instagram
great to
and
see.
stuff. People will be able to see them. They're really cool. But the newsletter was called Brass Tacks, right? So it's like the Elkhart Brass News, Brass Tacks, and kind of hard facts obviously just kind of fit with the roll in. And then now it's crazy how it blew up. So we're very appreciative of everybody watching the stuff. But that's it. They're getting the knowledge and getting it to places where you might not get this message or understand something, or it's different now than what you learned it in your Fire 1 book or whatever,
What I also like about it too, I'm just looking at the banner here too, and the established 1902. And this is a company that is steeped in tradition and culture, and it's got a long history.
Very much so.
And just hearing about the building, it's a big old brick building, just the nostalgia of it all, right? Really adds to the brand and the passion for nozzles and appliances. And I think of like the old school pictures, the black and whites, of the old school firemen, and took great pride in their nozzles, and I see that with you guys, Elkhart, and moving forward. And then what's really cool about that is then a company steeped in tradition and culture rolls out the understanding that more is needed on levels of communication that's going to reach the people, and things like brass tacks that you roll out on the social media and so on. It takes a company that's steeped in tradition and culture, but makes them relevant today. Takes pride in their product and pride in the education behind their product. And frankly, I mean, that just makes, you guys really stand out because of that. I think it's
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to dig in also. You guys have a fantastic relationship between the two of you. You guys do all these training conferences, and you work with some of the, if not all, the best in the industry. I'd love to just talk about that a little bit. The conferences, the micro conferences, the bigger conferences, and so on, the benefits of that. But I also think, too, what we're losing in the fire service today is the fire gods, the icons for the next generation. You guys are a part of that whole picture, and that's why tonight, sitting here with you guys, I'm kind of just a little starstruck with you guys. Just thinking about what you guys have been able to bring to the table, who you work with, and the output that you give the fire service. I'd love to just hit on one, Chris, Jerry, your relationship with each other, because you guys seem to feed off and work off each other very well. But two, also some of the rock stars in this industry that have so much to give. And the passion for the job. I just want to talk about that a little bit, if you wouldn't mind diving in.
Yeah, I'll take off on that.
Yeah.
First off, Chris and I, we go back. Chris worked for the company prior to me, I started in 2006. He was there already and already had evolved from the West Coast to doing some international work with us. We got along well. We were both firemen. Bit of an age difference, not too much, but that comes very apparent later why that's an advantage. We're of like minds, and our approach to the market was something that we had commonality with. All of our people did. So we kind of hit it off. I'm kind of intrigued by this young buck who we hire as an intern out of college, and and we're sending him overseas and doing all sorts of neat stuff with him. And I don't know, you might have been a little intrigued because I'm an East Coast guy, and you had traveled out here and looking to get on the job and all that type of stuff. But no, so that became the bond. We had different worlds for a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Chris went a different way and ended up coming back, and it all worked in the end. But I think we're like-minded, and we're blessed enough with our corporate structure where we're given some latitude to create things as long as they work. They need to work, and that's what we do. We work hard. Our people work hard because we're committed to it and we believe in it. So my challenge that we had thrown out was we need to create a personality for our brand, and it has something to do with people. The message is second to the person delivering it. So that's where I think the seed came, and that's where our bond is extremely tight, because we're both very, very passionate. That comes out. We're committed to it, despite whether there's a financial gain to it or not. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, of course.
It's like the whole approach with the educational thing. Eventually, we're a pretty strong company. We do well. We work hard, but the motive in some cases maybe isn't quite as common as people would think.
I get it. What about you, Chris? What do you?
Yeah, it's kind of that dichotomy of, depending on what's going on, the good cop, bad cop. Jerry and I always like, Jerry's kind of the outside guy, I'm the inside guy. We'll get to the point, I kind of give Jerry the nudge. I'm like, you might have to go Jersey on this guy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I like that.
And we make it happen. But I think that's the big difference of it, is that we work well with each other, but we're coming from different perspectives. But we talked about this earlier, like what makes a good instructor, right? Passion and expertise. So we're both passionate about what we're doing, and we both have a level of expertise when it comes to water flow.
Absolutely.
But obviously how I've been thumbprinted is different than how Jerry's been thumbprinted, but ultimately we share that same commonality.
Yep.
So there'll be times when we're out on a hot training, for example, and I'm obsessing about the product and what's holding up or what's not holding up, or some guy going like, hey man, you ever thought about doing this? And it's like, oh, that's interesting. Where Jerry might be doing more of like educational, going deeper on that end of it, right?
Sure.
So even though and usually like we'll only kind of overlap at the higher profile ones for that reason. But
you guys complement each other well.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And then as far as kind of the instructor network, man, one of my fondest memories of interning at Elkhart Brass was, going to Iaria's, which was this little small Italian restaurant in Indianapolis during FDIC, and me being, 20 years old, and there's, Dave McGrail and Jeff Shoup and Mark Wesseldine and all these guys, Tom Murray, just sitting there holding court, and I'm just like the young guy sitting on my hands, like, And so a lot of these, relationships, go back a really long time with, different reps we've had. Like Roger Johnson was a kind of a mentor of mine. He was kind of our Midwest Indiana guy, so he kind of held court at FDIC. He'd tell stories about me and Andy Fredericks for the first time, and things like that.
Incredible.
So a lot of these relationships, although they seem, well, Elkhart's got this guy in or that guy in, like we're just friends. We've made that over the years.
They're not compensated. They're not our payroll.
It's
again, it goes back to being like-minded.
Yeah.
But like Chris says, they predated us. It only makes sense to to have your products in the hand of people that have a high frequency of use. If we can be subject matter experts in the creation of a fire stream, let's talk to some subject matter experts of getting it down a hall in a challenging situation, whether it be a single story frame or a 108 story high rise.
Yeah.
And this is where it bridges the generations. And you talk about the challenge of passing on culture. The fire service isn't known for treating its young well, which is unfortunate.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yep.
And you're talking about subject matter that really has not changed.
Right.
It's GPM versus PTU. It's pretty simple math. Sooner or later you win, but is it effective?
Yeah.
And are you in danger? Right. So that's where this has become a thing. But that material, when you start interacting with an instructor network, it doesn't matter the demographic. It can be somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, guys that have been on longer than we're talking about. That part is relevant and bridges every generation. And, the experience that's offered relative to the mistakes that have been made in that arena that's what drives the desire for this kind of knowledge. When you can talk to Bobby Morris, John Norman, Salka, any of those guys from large jobs, guys from smaller jobs, guys that are both career and volunteer.
Yeah.
You look at how a lot of instructor groups structure their cadres.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's large urban, small career, mid-size, combination volunteers, because you have to appeal to the entire demographic.
Right.
Because the problem that drives the spec for this solution is the same for a major urban fire department as it is for a small single engine fire department that might get a job a year. It needs to be simple, intuitive, spec to your weakest link,
right,
but be adequate flow for the fire you're going to. Because you can't spec it to your star. What if you're not working with the A team that day?
Yep.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
I just kid around in classes. I say, you look in the back and you're like, oh, shit, we're going to lose. Some days peanuts, some days shells. You're not always working with the A team.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's awesome to even acknowledge that, because people won't.
It's reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the acronym I put up?
Yeah.
Every class I do starts. I put a big CPR. And that's one of the things I put on the whiteboard every time I'm in an instructional setting. And it has nothing to do with chest pump. It's the confidence to pursue reality. And the reality is your attack package has to be enough water for today's fire, the fire you're presented with, manageable by one firefighter. You and I might start together. You hit 2 or 3 bends on a house fire. You're at the pinch point.
That's right.
We're alone. And it has to be manageable by your weak link, by themselves.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
It's simple to say, hard to get to. It's a lot of work to get there.
Yeah, we always work in that absolute. We always work in that perfect environment, right? Never happens.
No,
but that's what we train for. That's how we, realistic. We were talking about realistic training the other night, right? I mean, we always shoot for the best and we hope for the best,
right?
And 99% of the time we don't get the best, and it's hard to work that way. I think too, the other thing, Chris, you were talking about, sitting in the restaurant like that with some incredible names and just being a fly on the wall, if you will, and a young kid. I mean, that's all part of it too for me, to be able to understand that experience matters. I think we're losing that. And I think that, we're getting away, we're shying away from conversations like that, or we're playing dumb or turning a blind eye. Experience does matter. In this industry, it matters. And you guys are on a level where you're at these conferences with some of the best names in the industry that have a lot to share. And what I love about it, we talked about those micro conferences, the smaller conferences where it's maybe 150 to 200, guys and girls that show up for that training conference. I think it's great because what happens is like-minded people, Jerry, we talked about this before, like-minded people find each other. And when you invest to go to these conferences, you get to surround yourself often with some incredible names who bring a lot to share, not just experience, but life knowledge. Stories.
Yes.
Storytelling is a part of the fire service. To be able to be a young kid and sit in a room like that, invaluable. Like you just can't get that.
In the class of that instructor, that guy, I mean, they're gentlemen, right? I mean,
that's exactly it.
Yeah, I mean, a story I've told before is like, I got out of college in 2003. I moved to California. I grew up in Indiana, so I was the Indiana boy living on the West Coast, and our East Coast guy, Gordy Harris, at the time, was just an old school East Coast guy. I'd been here forever. So he calls me up. Hey, kid, you got to go to Angels Camp, California on this day. Wear an Elkhart shirt, introduce yourself, represent the company. I go, okay, sure, whatever, you know. Well, then come to find out, this was 2003. So this was the second year of the Andy Fredericks Memorial Golf Tournament.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Gordy was very close with Andy and these guys, and hey, they're doing a charity for Andy. We need to represent and be there and support and whatever we can do. We got a nozzle coming, things like that. And, you know, so just picture me. It's like 22-year-old kid, you know, hey, everybody, you know, and I kind of walk up in the parking lot, and I'll never forget to this day. And these guys are hanging out, and it's like Daryl Liggins and Shoop, and I think I mentioned Wesseldine and Ted Corporandi, and these guys are they're standing in the parking lot drinking beer. And I park my car and I walk up, and I'm like, hey, I'm the Elkhart guy, you know, and again, this is a testament to like what gentlemen these guys were like. Hey man, awesome! Like, thanks. Come on in.
Yeah.
You're one of us.
Right.
You made it here. You know, thanks for representing here for the right cause. Like, and I got to share that story with Daryl just a couple of years ago. I never really told him that, and it was kind of cool just to kind of like connect the dots. You know, so many years later. That's it. Like, you don't realize. I think you mentioned it earlier. Like seeing some young guys on a fire. Like, you don't realize like who you're touching.
That's right.
I think Von Appen uses like thumbprinting, like who you're thumbprinting, like along your journey. That 20 years later, you're like, I remember that dude. Like he was good to me, you know, kind of thing. And you pass that forward in a way. But
and it's defining moment in your career.
Yeah, 100%. You know, so from that point on, you know, Andy Fredericks was interwoven. Like I'll be the first to admit I had no idea who he was before that.
Right.
But after and it was kind of funny. Like in college, we had a group of firefighters that would come from 44 Engine in New York. It was like Upper East Side, and their mascot was like a leprechaun.
Yeah, it's Fighting Irish or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So I was a student fireman at Notre Dame, so they would come every year for Notre Dame game, and then we would go out there for St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
Okay. So it was kind of like a really cool exchange program.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
That's great.
So like as soon as I was of age, you know, I made the trip to St. Patrick's Day, and this was the one right after 9/11, and some of our guys had stayed at the time. Squad 18 was with 20 Truck at the time because they're remodeling their firehouse. And we just like stayed there, and you know, or like I bought the T-shirt or whatever, and it wasn't until like a couple years later, like Andy's name was on the shirt.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't know at the time, you know, so just like those weird kind of threads that kind of connect things.
I love
paying attention to the past and how it impacts you today and all that stuff.
It does, and I think it's important too because it takes, you know, you talk about being a gentleman, and that's what it's about, right? Like everything's interwoven in this. I just as I get older and older with my children and life and business and National Fire Radio, it's just so cool how everything winds in and out of itself. And, you know, I talk about the fire service, and you have a circle here and a circle here, and then this circle overlaps that circle with one or two guys, and they're in that. And it's such a interesting and cool concept. And what I want to do is instill that into this younger generation, the younger guys in the firehouse. When, you know, I always talk about when somebody pulls up on the ramp of the firehouse asking for directions, I always like to see who's going to go out and talk to, you know, Mrs. Smith, who's lost, right? And typically it's the older guys because the engagement from the younger guys just a lot of times doesn't happen. Engagement is so important. You know, when you talk about Andy Fredericks, like, and you said, I didn't know who he was, but you certainly know his story now, and it's left an impact on you and your fire service career. And I love stories like that. I think that fuels our growth and desire to better ourselves and then better the job too.
100%.
I think so. I believe that wholeheartedly.
I would agree, and those are the things we talked a little bit about this earlier that you need to share, and you need to share them for that reason.
Right.
You know, as a culture, we don't pass on stories well. Other cultures do it much better than we do. But, you know, think back when you first got in the firehouse, right? Your dad was in the firehouse, uncles, brothers, cousins, right? And the same with probably all of us. You learned as much, if not more, at that table than you did in a class.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You know, and I mean, there's the challenging thing with a lot of training programs at the state level. They're so academic now. They're lacking that. You know, it's.
Gotta meet that check mark.
You're teaching to pass a test as opposed to comprehend the material.
I'd like you guys' take on this one. Like, this came up at the 350 line conference we did in Richmond, about a month or so ago?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really interesting question where somebody from the audience said, like, hey, you know, when you go to a micro conference like that, you know, and then you go back to your fire department, you know, you feel like you're the outsider, like you're the only guy into it. Like, you know, do I feel like I'm the only person that's paying attention to this? Like, so that the question was like, do you feel that people are less into the job now than they were in the past, kind of thing? You see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. So, like, and I think about that, like, there's pockets of this everywhere. Like, you know, my stepdad, his dad were all South Bend firefighters. So I grew up, you know, hanging out in the firehouse at a young age and riding my bike to the local firehouse. And, like, those guys were always into the job.
I get it.
You know?
Absolutely.
Like, so is it that, you know, people air out what they're doing more often that maybe, you know, it looks like they're not into it? Or is it this, like, it's like this pendulum swing, right? Everybody likes to use that example of, like, you know, I'm way over here or way over here, when many people might be in the middle. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't know that people are less into it today than they were 20 years ago.
Maybe more people are aware of what's going
on.
But why is it?
I think that they're into it, and I think they're aware. But, like, when you pulled out your phone, I think there's more of a chance for people. And we talked about negative influences in social media and some of the detrimental effects they can have. And I think there's people out there who, like, you know, you put it very eloquently before, like, they're in mom's basement, so they're not going to that mini conference. They're not trying to better themselves.
Right.
Why?
The first thing they're going to do is shit on somebody who comes
Why
back
is
to the
it
station,
not okay?
that knowledge is a threat to them.
Why is it not okay to be into the job? Why is it when one or two guys come back from a conference and they're all fired up and they're ready to go, guys will turn around and they'll shit on them? Right? Why is it not okay to be into the job? It's okay. Like, we talk about it all the time. The job is good. I did a brotherhood speech a couple weeks ago for a conference, right? The opening conference night. And the whole message of that 35, 40-minute conversation that I had with everybody in that room was the job is good. Let's enjoy it. Let's celebrate it. You know, the phone just exposes. We talked about this. The phone exposes, right? Like, it's okay to be into it. It's okay to be a buff. It's okay to see how other people are doing it because, frankly, everybody is doing it. What I don't understand is why we have to become so guarded that we don't allow our love to shine and beam over the top about how good the job is. Yeah. It's almost like I'm afraid to tell you how much I love the job because I'm worried about what you think.
Yeah, that's, I don't know, you know.
We've become so guarded.
Well, we have, and that comes from poor thumbprinting, I guess, in the past. Right, they weren't, they were brought up wrong. You know, that goes back to the culture. I mean, what do you teach first in the firehouse? You know, the task or the culture? You got to get the culture down. And, I like that. You know, and
I've never heard that before, Jerry. I like that.
That's the respect.
Shirt.
You know, well, I was looking for another idea. I got
it. Send that to
Please send that. Text that to me. I need one for April.
Yeah. Just for you did pull out your notepad earlier too.
I did.
There's a stone.
But that's it. You know, if you lose, you know, to me, if you lose culture in the firehouse, you won't get it back. You're going to breed in a generation that will not have that.
Right.
If you instill it early and carry that through, it helps in the application of those tasks. People have a higher sense of ownership. It's the company concept, 2 + 2 = 5. We cover each other. It's driven at that company level. And if you lose that, I don't think you can get it back.
It's hard.
I've seen organizations just tank for. I'm not saying they can't go to fires. They go to fires, but it's different. So
it's very easy to go to a fire and take care of the situation, because I always look at it as like it's real easy to negotiate or to figure out what to do when there's a gun at your head, because it's just oh crap, I have to deal with this. But like when it's all that being back with each other between that fire, and if that culture isn't taught, and you lose that, like that's where the department tanks. It tanks in morale. It tanks in people eating at each other.
Yeah.
Stabbing each other in the back. And, it's unfortunate. And some of us are really experiencing it. And it's just a sad thing to see.
I saw this
It'll
on
drive people out.
Absolutely.
I saw this on that's Trial by Fire, where it's like, cohesion is the ultimate killer of low morale, right? So like,
Love it.
we've all got
good, right?
issues, man. Like, it doesn't matter if you're at home or you're at work, right? But when I'm going to the firehouse, like, what can I control? Like my crew, right? Like, that's my world I'm in charge of, right? So, like, if that's crappy and you don't get along, like, and you don't drill together, and then you're on the way to the fire, and like, what line do you want pulled? Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. Come on.
There's a high level of confidence.
And then the other, the other thing that's like important too, and I mean, I'm just enamored with it. If I come to like, New York is like, because obviously the company and every firehouse and guys stay in the firehouse and whatnot is like, it's even like, shift Christmas parties and getting together off of work and seeing, you're all reading each other, know everybody's strengths and weaknesses, right? So if you can kind of learn that in a variety of environments, and when it hits the fan, like, hey man, he's really strong here. He's not so good here. He's really strong here. I'm not so good here, but I'm strong here.
Yeah.
And we can all work together as a team, right, to get it done. But you don't know that unless you're, the company concept. I can control that. I can be into that. I can spread that. I can, direct that, foster that, whatever you want to say, right? But I think so many people are like, wow, the department vibe is this, so I'm not going to do it or whatever. But like,
and the performance follows that attitude. We were just saying, you'll lose people, but you're also going to draw the wrong type.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or empower the wrong ones.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and you get to the point where your quality, well, how's that saying go? When your passionate people start to leave, you really should. That's a flag.
Yeah. So I mean, like an analogy was like, I don't care if they leave. We have a whole nother recruit class coming in. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's think about this. Like, if I'm a 10-year employee of Google, okay, am I going to care if I go jump over to Yahoo? Yeah, that's a big deal.
I get it.
Yeah, because guess what? They got kids coming out of college every year.
Right.
But is that kid out of college the same as a 10-year employee of Google? Like, no. It's retention. It's keeping them there and motivating them. And, like the way to motivate people, right, by the book is like what, achievement and recognition and things like that. Like, of course, we like a pat on the back every now and then, even though we're not going to say that. But, you reward the people from staying there instead of like, well, if you don't like it, you can leave.
Yeah.
Well, come on, man. Like, I've spent, so many years of my life in this place.
Right.
But the devil's advocate to this conversation goes back to the CPR, the reality I was talking about before. I work a lot with our larger urban fire departments and trials, and the reality is the job does not draw what it used to draw. Okay, it brings a different person in some cases, and I say it in a funny way. It's not funny, but I use it in classrooms to say there's not enough outlying stations to put these people at. Sooner or later, they're coming to a fire. That's why this package has to be simplistic enough for them,
Right.
because that could be on your six that day.
Because what you're saying, because we put open and close on the nozzle, right? And we know there's people that are still going to screw that up.
Yeah.
So the simpler you can make this, and make it easy for the firemen, and make it, the nozzle reaction manageable, but yet the flow still effective. Like, you're setting them up to win, when we all know this is something most firefighters probably aren't thinking about when they jump off the rig.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, that was one of my favorite shirts too, right?
Yeah.
Just because water's coming out doesn't mean you're doing it right. Yeah. I don't know if we did the Day of the Nozzle on July 8th. We had some fun with it.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
from
yeah.
a social media guy. I ate it up. I think I was sending you messages.
Yeah, you were.
like,
Now,
this is
I
great.
intentionally.
This
If
I've
that
had
played,
restless mind syndrome.
Was
thing.
it the Day of the Nozzle or was it 7/8 Day? There was some confusion there, so I had to capitalize on that because I'm a 15/16 user.
Ah.
So that's where I
Gonna
went,
make
right?
the year longer.
Well, no, but that's the point.
It's a powerful company.
It doesn't matter what; it matters how,
Right.
and are you working to get there? And that's where it has to work, because it all does come back to that. That's where I live right now.
I get it.
You know, yeah, I was up there before, but that's where I live now.
Yeah.
And I need to understand it. I need to know it, because I'm responsible for making it work, and I'm responsible for making that work, whether I'm volunteer, combination, or career. And I also have to understand that the person sitting next to me, it could be their last fire or it could be their first fire, and they're expected to perform at the same level of expertise.
Right.
That's why that has to be a no-brainer. And any equipment package does. I don't a saw, nozzle, whatever it may be. Those are your tools.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely well said. So where are we going to go from here, right? So, I mean, we hit up culture. We talked about brass tacks. One last thing on culture, and what I'm enamored with you guys is that, educating and instilling the culture of how important it is to seek out like-minded people and people that bring passion and experience. We have a lot of guys that don't have experience but have a lot to say. Those are the guys that I talk about that typically spend, they happen to stay home the weekend of the training, or the conference, and they don't go.
Live burns today, so I'm calling in sick.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I can't implore people enough, the people that follow us and listen to us and check out your content, like, experience matters. I'm sitting here with an incredible amount of experience. We had some conversations earlier, and man, did I not feel smart. I mean, I'm not a smart guy, but you two are, when it comes to nozzles and hydraulics and so on, I mean, this is where you want to sit and listen, So I can't stress that enough, how important that is, because I think that message is getting lost. And I think we have to view who we talk to and where we're getting our information from to be sure that we're putting out the right information. So, awesome.
That was actually one of probably the more challenging things with Brass Tacks Hard Facts is, we work and get along and are friends with the majority of the instructor set. But it was a challenge identifying the demographic and who we wanted to utilize.
Right.
The message could be the same from all of them, but it's like when you if you're in an organization that's resistant to change on your job, sometimes bringing someone in from the outside is what it takes, right? You've heard that everybody's a subject matter expert 15 minutes from home.
Yep.
So we had to put a lot of conscious effort into that. And the message is consistent. It bridges generations, but how it's delivered and who delivers it nowadays is more relevant than it ever has been.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way. That is a cultural challenge. You talk about people that don't even know the names of people that we consider to be icons now.
Right.
And who's tier 2, right? Who's coming up and who are we cultivating? And, we're lucky. Everyone wants to be associated with us, and we want to be associated with everyone, but there's a selection process there,
of course.
too.
There has to be. There has to
we don't know who the next, tier 1 instructor circuit guy is going to be, so we get along with everybody, and we try to, if they're driven by the right principles. But you see it as well as we do. People come, it's a very short period of fame. They get their 15 minutes and they move on because they're centered in the wrong spot.
Exactly.
What it's work, right? You gotta, like, how did you guys get what you got? Is you drove, you posted, you had original content, it was authentic. Like,
it's hard work.
There's no magic bullet for that, right? You got to put the effort in.
Yeah.
So, same thing, like all this stuff. This isn't just magically show up one day and we say, here it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So how about we do this too? Because, Elkhart is one of many brands that you guys represent and that you're a part of. And so I'd love to talk about some other things that you guys are a part of the Safe Fleet family, right?
Sure.
So Safe Fleet is the parent company of Elkhart and many other brands as well.
Yep.
Maybe, Chris, we were talking tonight about a few of the other brands and things that, there's some exciting things that are going to start popping and so on with some of the other things that you guys represent.
Yep.
Why don't we dive into that a little bit? Background.
Sure. So, 2015, we were acquired by Safe Fleet, so we were family owned up until that point. And we are grouped with the FRC, Foam Pro, and ROM as the 4 brands. So FRC, a lot of people hear FRC, they might not necessarily know what that is. But what that is like most of your pressure governors are manufactured by FRC. So your throttles, your scene lighting, Foam Pro is obviously doing your foam systems, and ROM does your roll-up doors. So we're kind of grouped with those companies. So although our world is, squirting water and flowing lines, we also have, Elkhart Brass, even just in itself, is in a whole bunch of different divisions. One of those being, we call OEM. So working with apparatus. So basically, the
original equipment manufacturer.
Yeah.
Right.
So as Safely goes, we can bring everything kind of to the table that you would need for your apparatus, and give you, like a high technology, modern solution to what's going on.
Right. Just simple conversations about lighting, roll-up doors.
Yeah.
National Fire Radio, we take great pride in our apparatus innovation segments that we do. We travel around the country. We go to different firehouses, existing equipment, new equipment coming off the line at factories. It's so important to educate the end user about the product.
Yep. Right.
We, for a very long time, have always relied on the apparatus manufacturers to tell us how to build trucks. And maybe not, maybe the core things that can and can't be done, but when it comes to your lighting and roll-up doors and, positioning and setup and all that stuff, right? We have years and years of wisdom in our own fire company about how my engine or truck or rescue or whatever needs to be set up. And so we should be able to figure out for ourselves, based upon our operations, how we want the truck set up. And then we should be able to have options presented to us that we can put on. Right. I think the one interesting thing, Chris, we were just talking about lighting, right? Scene lighting.
Yeah.
You take for granted what scene lighting is all about. It's a light.
Right.
It's not sexy. It's not like this incredible thing that you're going to sit there and have hour conversations about like we could about the nozzle, right? But it's a necessary piece of equipment.
100%. It's something that, a guy's not, super passionate about, but on the other hand, is it something he's not super educated about?
Exactly.
Right. So that's usually how this goes is you show up and, hey, I'm going to get brand Z fire truck and, hey, we use this brand. Okay, cool. I don't know this or that. Right. Whereas, we're here, as I said, in God's country in northern New Jersey. The last couple.
It's been called a lot worse. I mean, God's country's nice. We'll take that.
There's a tree out there.
I met Donnie and Little Donnie today. That's a good. Yeah,
that's right. Just tell him Big Don sent you.
Big Don sent you. Yeah. But anyway, so I just spent a couple days in Long Island at FRC, right? So it was a bit eye-opening to me as, again, the common fireman that's living in the nozzle world to see how lights and governors and things like this are made because, you take it for granted as a commodity almost, right? So, I turn the light on and it's bright and it lights up the scene. Sure. I how does this go? Like at trade shows, at trade shows, you always hate being next to the lighting guy because the guy turns on all the time. Blinds you all the time, right? Yeah, exactly. But it's like,
seeing things all day long, right?
But there's particularly the lighting, there's a little bit of secret sauce going on, So, I mean, FRC has a very unique design with their lens. So you think of a lens, I think of a lens on a car headlight. Keeps it dry and it keeps the bugs off the bulb.
Yeah,
right? Whereas this lens actually is bending light, so it doesn't blind you and it's shining it in the right spots. You don't need to have 20,000 lumens. Maybe you need 10,000 lumens. And then you get down to what's a lumen? How many do I need? So anyway, we've got some cool stuff coming down the pipeline that we're going to be putting out here in the next couple months that kind of will help kind of break down some of we broke down some of the voodoo behind hydraulics and nozzles.
Yeah, that's exactly
the same thing with apparatus. Is most people see it as a commoditized thing when you really start looking at the design. If you go buy an $80 light for your Jeep off of Amazon, you're going to assume that was manufactured in a foreign land. Right. And I take out the box, I put it on. Whereas these lights are all assembled, put together, tested, everything right here in Long Island.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, it still is an American-made thing done right here with really strong engineering and intellectual property behind it with the end user firefighter in mind. Yeah. Right. This isn't an off-road light that's really bright that we think is going to work really good on a fire truck versus like, oh no, we've sat down with major metropolitan fire departments to see what they want, and we've designed a solution around that.
Yeah.
As opposed to a really bright light. You can just get
I
out
even
on.
like just the aspect of you showing us the video before of the light getting dunked in a tub of water and turned on.
Yeah.
And like just seeing some of the different testing that's going into the light, because you said like no one's sitting there in the firehouse being like, man, I can't wait until we get
Oh my God.
Pierce,
yeah,
Elon, Rosenbauer
Right.
stuff in here so they can tell us about scene lighting.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
This truck's gonna
just
be
not
awesome.
cool.
But like
Right.
to actually see it and actually know that somebody's giving a shit about it,
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Well, what do you say? You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
Like, and this
Right.
is something like up until a couple days ago, I even had a vague representation of what this is. So
Sure.
now, my job is to kind of tell all of you the story of why this is something you should care about. you
Well,
know?
and what I love too is earlier when we were talking about this a little bit, and you were kind of just giving us a little background on it. I said, "Do I really care?"
right.
I said that out loud to you. I was
Yeah,
like, "Do
you
I
did.
care? Like, do we
You
care?
did.
Like, do I care that this light's better than this light?" And then Chris kind of he didn't answer the question right away, but he kind of pointed out a few things. And basically how the conversation went was this: well, you do in a roundabout way. You might not openly care, but you want to make educated decisions. Education is key.
Of course.
Right. And so you want to know, as much as I don't care about scene lighting, I do care about scene lighting. And, it might not be something I'm going to seek out, but if, you're willing to put the education out there for us to learn, we're going to digest that information. We're going to want to learn about it so we can make an educated buy.
I mean, it's like the nozzle 10 years ago. Did I care how much water came out the
Right.
other end?
Right.
And most other people didn't either.
Yeah.
But it related to your world.
Right.
I'm blinded or I'm in the dark, or is there an in between? It's
Right.
It's
Is there a
like-
smarter way of
I
doing it?
often feel both.
Does
Yeah.
does a valve
On a daily basis.
Yeah.
a valve on a deck gun make sense? Well, if you're stuck off tank water and the second is 5 minutes out,
Right.
quarter of a tank you're going to waste getting the stream where it needs to be. A valve does make sense on a deck
Right.
gun. A door. Can I get it open when I need to?
Right. Of course.
We know it's been a problem. 17 people have walked by it on the 17 past shifts, and all of a sudden, I need that one thing that we only use once a year, and I can't get the door open.
Right.
It's affecting your world.
Yes.
I mean, what you said too was interesting about you're buying a custom fire apparatus
Absolutely.
for your town, village, city, whatever. And for a lot of places, that doesn't happen very often. It might be a once in a 5, 10 year, 20-year thing.
20 year. Yeah. Right.
So you're spending a lot of money to make sure you get it right. So I think a lot of times they're like, well, yeah, we use this most of the time, and we haven't had too many problems with it.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. We'll take that one. You guys build how many trucks a year? Versus no, I did my homework, and this is what we want, and this is going to provide you the best solution, and you can do it because we're buying a custom fire truck.
Right.
But again, it's back to the doing your homework, just like you're doing water flow.
Yep.
It's
education.
It's educating the
there's-
consumer.
There's levels of expertise there, and I have a lot of respect. Elkhart's a manufacturer. That's at this level. We sell through dealers and distribution. That's at this level, and then we have an end user community.
Right.
All right. So we're an ambassador to the end user community that drives the spec for our products that are purchased by a dealer or ordered on a Pierce or a KME, whatever kind of fire apparatus you buy. So if we're spec driven as opposed to gadget or product driven, that puts it into your hands. All right, because you're the one that benefits from that. It's the same as that we do with nozzles. How could I possibly? We were asked to create a class that talked about how to set up the parameters for a hose and nozzle evaluation, and it has not so much to do with brand, but we have to go to a deep dive into the 4 primary designs of nozzles that are used by the fire service. And it's the same with any other product. If you commoditize it, you'll get those results. Mm-hmm. If you buy it like toilet paper as a consumable, then that's what you're going to get.
Exactly.
And you can ask people that are speccing a $800,000 fire engine, what valves are on it? The ones that open and close.
Yep.
Is there a difference? I don't know.
Yeah.
I got
What did you get?
I got
what the guy said.
What he told me we should put on there.
I got 2 Qs and 2 rotor arrays and a sweet graphics package.
So what we do is what we try and do, and I'm not knocking the sales level of it, but the depth of knowledge, the subject matter expertise in some cases is higher at the manufacturing level, and less jaded by what's easier at this level for the consumer who buys at this level.
Yeah.
So if there's 6 different valve designs and actuator designs that you can take advantage of based on your world, you might want to have a better understanding of them before you make a decision.
Without a doubt.
Suspect.
It's just in life in general. How do you make decisions based on no fact or factual evidence or education?
Google.
You're
Yeah.
all right.
But yeah.
I saw it on the internet. It's got to be real.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I put my faith in a lot of things, but when you're building a project, I equated it before. When you're building a custom home, custom fire truck, custom home, same price tag. If I want that tile and I'm paying for it, I want the freaking tile I want.
Yeah.
Right.
There shouldn't have to
consistency in the ground. And
exactly. I mean,
because that's personal.
It's all of that, and so we're very passionate about that. We talk a lot about the apparatus. We work with different manufacturers. We put out content that is focus driven to educate the end user. It's exciting to see what you guys are doing with the couple different lines that you guys offer under the family of companies. I'm excited to see what you guys have coming out, because I will tell you, Elkhart offers fantastic branding on social media, and you guys,
I appreciate it.
Chris, Jerry, you guys have done really great things, not only to represent yourself and your brand and educating the end user, but making the fire service just that much better. And I love it, man.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, of course. But that's fact. That's fact. And you can see that. So
It's actually a hard fact.
Hard fact. Yeah.
Let's get down to the brass
Ridley.
tacks and the hard facts.
Yeah, I like that. You see? That's wow, who came up with that? That's incredible.
I tell you, it's like we said before. Engine's cool again. The rig can be cool too. I'll toss some love out to Dennis. Dennis has always been one, and other people. Big Water Paulie. Challenge yourself on the paradigms that you're stuck in. Does a deck gun have to be at 80 psi? Can you push it harder? What size is your tank to pump valve? There's things that are decisions that are relevant to your world when you need them, if you put the time into understanding.
I mean, you guys have identified this, that, it's, there's several different tracks, right? We take as a fire service, like engine, truck, fitness, leadership, right? What's my next angle, right? But deep down, we're all fire truck geeks, man.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people doing that other than you guys. So we're going to start contributing on that end.
Yeah, we're excited to see it, man.
Together.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great, because at the end of the day, it's all about the end user.
Yeah.
It's all about making our fire service just a little bit better, and that's what I say to Rob and Sebi and Tucker and the rest of the guys, is if we can do just our little part to make it just a little bit better, or we educate some kid in Iowa about the difference between X, Y, and Z, I said we win.
It's
worth it.
Same as brass tacks, hard facts.
And we have.
Same thing.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best, and that's what I'm so proud about with this this platform, is we've heard back from those people who've been like, "Hey, you've helped me. You've made things better."
That validates it.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I was talking about before about brass tacks. That's awesome. Because when you get down to it, doesn't matter what you're really good at or what you're a subject matter expert at. The one thing that everybody in this room shares is what? We're all firefighters.
Right. Or like, hey, thanks for letting us borrow a flow meter. That's all I needed to either. It's like I say when we set up our class, I go, it's like Mythbusters, man. And you can't.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you
I
can't
like
do
that.
Mythbusters without the lie detector.
Calibrated in front of the doubting Thomas.
Yeah,
It's a piece of equipment.
Calibrate it, you put
Not
it right
just
there.
saying it, it's right there.
Fact.
It's accurate, and
Fact.
and that's the hard fact. So, I mean, just even loaning somebody a flow meter and then sending a message like, "Hey, man, thanks. This is that's all I needed."
Yeah.
Just to kind of, either validate or not validate what I'm after.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that circles back to what we were talking about before. The correct culture, every once in a while, there's an attaboy.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you need that little piece of validation, really, just to push you, and you sit back for half a second and go, it was worth the push, it was worth the struggle, it was worth the hard work.
Right.
It's important.
And I think that people get validation confused with like coddling, and sometimes validation is simply letting your crew know that you're doing the right thing, or your people know that you're doing.
Yeah.
You're
Or
meeting
that
your
it's
expectations and
that
exceeding them.
it's okay to question. right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, who, like, as you were saying that earlier, when did it become okay to perform at such a poor level? You know, I don't want to be a part of that company.
No. No.
Right.
Mediocrity should not be
Yeah.
acceptable.
So, will you get singled out? Maybe a couple senior guys will bust your chops. I've seen it kind of turn to the point now where I'm more suspect of the guy that doesn't question things
Yeah.
as a senior man.
Or like
I want that kind
well
of
said.
questioning. You know, I mean, you go back, it was just a different battle. I wasn't fighting this battle on the back in the day. I was fighting the fact that we were using cotton duck coats and we didn't have hoods. You know,
Yeah.
what's your temperature barometer? My ears and my wrist.
Yeah.
You know, bad policy, but that's what it was.
Right.
That evolved. We fought that battle. You know, bunkers, hoods, all the, something that wasn't cotton duck. Something.
Yep.
You want to talk real
it
quick
just
about like
evolves.
making the committee? You know, we mentioned that in the class of like,
Yeah.
what's your demographic of if you are out to make like
that is
change?
relative.
Yeah, I think that we're right
if you're
there.
going to set up, put it this way, if you're going to start a nozzle committee, you're going to end up doing a hose committee and an evaluation and vice versa, because the package has to work together.
Right.
So who do you want on this, and how are you going to be successful with it? It can't be based on emotion or personal opinion. You got some young buck, he's always on the phone, he's into, he understands the Freeman rate principle and ratios of velocity of water and this, and he goes to a conference and listens to some high-rise guru. Comes back and he's like, hey, boss, we got to go 2.5 off a standpipe. Well, why? Well, you sent me to this conference. The guy, Dave McGrail, says that's the only thing you should use. Who's Dave McGrail? Well, he's a district chief. Where? Denver. Get out of my office. That's not my world, right?
Right.
That's an opinion.
Right.
But as opposed to, in many cases, you have to structure this group just to get a passport to start. But when you start, you need to go deep. You need to get all that data. And who you have on this committee is actually critical. You want the young buck who's pushing for change, who's constantly on his phone, who understands what's going on because he's a student of it. You also want the senior firefighter who may have been thumbprinted in the 80s or the 70s, because without his experience filter, this means nothing.
Right.
And you want in between. So if you don't have breadth on the committee, when it comes time for winning or presenting or even implementation, if you do win, you'll have division. So the other person you want on there is the PowerPoint wizard. It needs to be pretty, because
Yeah, it
I don't.
does.
Even if you're a dinosaur,
It's gotta be
it
packaged. You gotta
does.
package it.
If you're
Yeah.
not into that and you're still using a flip phone, you know the value of a good PowerPoint. You like looking at that stuff, okay? So you need that firefighter, and the person who delivers it is absolutely critical. The work may have been done by someone else, but you want that senior firefighter, because you could very well be presenting to a chief who hasn't seen the street in 10 or 15 years.
Yeah. Sure.
And the thumbprint on that chief was from a different era where tactics were different. And it's not that their fires didn't go out. They were probably fighting more fires than we are. We use a great example with Chris's family of a fire in the 80s. It was before he was born, but it's...
I was born then. I was about 4 years old.
Okay. So I was actually the year I became a lieutenant.
That was a shot back
1983.
for the
But
stone tablet
anyway.
comment.
But you know what? The fires were not. They were fighting more of them. The tactics were different. And, we use an example of a good buddy of ours that did a tremendous study. He took the attack chapter from multiple editions of the Essentials book and how it's changed. So if you're presenting to a chief who was thumbprinted in the 80s or the 90s and hasn't seen the street,
Right.
and you're telling him that 100 PSI sucks and flowing 95 gallons a minute is going to kill you, like when the first time you made a push with 1.5 inches and it worked, right? Okay. You have to have respect, and you have to address that, because you could be talking to the person who put the equipment into service that you're looking to replace.
Absolutely.
So the personal attack is wrong. That's emotionally driven, as opposed to flow driven based on heat release rates of today's fire. It needs to be that clinical. And, we designed this class for that. So that committee approach, like Chris said, it has to be that. If you're going to win in an organization that's reluctant to change, it has to be data driven. And you have to have done a breadth of testing that incorporates every design, not what you want.
Right.
If it doesn't bring you to your solution, maybe you had the wrong suggestion.
I'm with you.
Okay?
I get it.
So it warrants that because, again, this is not a commodity. This is not toilet paper. Make a mistake on this, you're going to use it for 15 or 20 years.
Yep.
And people don't understand, if you're lucky enough to be on a change committee for something like this, it's like a once-in-a-career opportunity because it isn't purchased on a high frequency. So put the time and effort into doing it correctly, not for your own benefit, for the benefit of the job.
Absolutely.
And that also plays to, like, I don't know, maybe how we are in society today, that you see it all the time on social media. People, you know, how do I get smooth bore, right? Should I use 7/8 or 15/16? You know, like everybody wants the cut and paste solution.
Yep.
Right. Like, so
It's easy.
You know, I download this nozzle study, find, seek, replace my department name. Here you go, chief.
Yeah.
Here's what it is.
Yep.
Like, but you've never flowed any water. And then the other part, when we teach our classes, I go, it's a very clinical setting with flow meters and gauges in the parking lot, right? Jerry's got a famous line of like, we've yet to be to a parking lot fire, but that's where we do all hose and nozzle studies. So that's step one, right? So step two is getting out of the parking lot and then moving it with your people, right? Taking your burn building, taking an acquired structure, taking it with your ninjas, taking it with your weakest performers and see what works. So like Kurt Isaacson talks about, like, if you take any of his classes, he calls it his gallons per second test, which is a really interesting way to think about it. Is when they did their nozzle study, they took a 7/8 and a 15/16. Okay, so those that might not be on our level, 7/8 160 gallon a minute, 15/16 185. Okay, a little bit higher nozzle reaction on a 15/16. Okay, but what they did was they said, okay, I have my Ninja engine crew, and you guys start at the front door, and I want you to open the bail. Make it upstairs to the back bedroom, and I don't want you to shut down until you make the back room, okay? But what they did, instead of watching the crew, is they had a flow meter in place. So they watched the flow meter.
Right.
So what do you think happened? On the 15/16, a little bit higher nozzle reaction, the two-person crew, you start pushing corners and stairs, what happens? You start losing your backup firefighter, right? So not necessarily guys are shutting down a lot. They're starting to half bail, reposition, right? So although the 15/16 gave out more gallons per minute, right, guys were constantly having to fight the nozzle reaction and half bail. And with the 7/8, they were able to keep it open longer.
Right.
So in reality, they're putting more water on the fire, right, more gallons per second, because the line was more manageable versus, well, that flows 185. So clearly that puts out more
on
water.
paper.
Right?
Yeah.
But if I'm constantly having half bail or reposition because it's too much nozzle reaction versus give me something that is still above NFPA minimum target flow, 160 is our most common flow rate that's leaving our door today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because it's high flow, nice punch, and easy to manage, but I can keep the bail open, you know?
Yep.
So, I mean, you tell the example of, like, you know, two people, one's got to make a grab, like, and I got to hold the nozzle by myself, I can do that.
Yep. You know, I got the other thing when you finally, you know, I refer to the parking lot as the range. If you're into guns, that's where you're zeroing it in, right? You're not using it yet. And I got to I'll give a shout out to my firehouse because my guys get this. The guys that are bosses and chiefs running my firehouse right now, I had years ago when they were like explorers. And Brian, Corey, and Mike, and they get it. We talk about this frequently. We just had a conversation before I left for my last trip. The value of getting into a building or an acquired structure, a training center, and do this water mapping and advancement training without smoke. Don't be smacking your people in the head with a stick telling them to get down because you got theater smoke going, all right? Stop the drama. Explain what a fire stream does and where the water goes and how to be effective, right? There's a time for a convulsive approach and there's a time to be a gentleman. Calm the fuck down. Excuse me, I probably should have said that.
No, you're fine.
Right?
You're fine.
What I'm saying is you have to understand that environment and what's happening with it. And the way to do that is with full visibility. That's how you start. Get them to understand how that water application works. Then
Crawl
you
before you walk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just take a step back. You're not at a fire. You're speccing a piece of equipment you're evaluating. You don't need the drama. Sooner you're going to a fire.
Yep.
Relax.
So it's
okay?
like,
let's get good at it first.
Absolutely.
like that example I use in Richmond, and I'll use this sometimes when we talk about instruction, right? So, like, my mom, God bless her, just retired, and she was the secretary in the Notre Dame football office for 37 seasons.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So Jerry Faust hired her, and
Yep.
she was there since then, right? So the one day I just kind of had a light bulb moment. I go, Mom, how, like the NCAA regulates how many hours a week you can practice in full pads, okay? How many hours is that? You know, she's like, oh, I'll find out. She calls me back like an hour later. Oh, I asked this coach. So think about this for a second. So the NCAA says you can, I think it's 2 hours a day in full pads, okay? So whether you're, my shout out to my buddy Steve Robertson, Ohio State, because you guys just came out as number 1 today. So that pains me. Or I used to use Alabama, but now I guess I got to use Ohio State. Or you're, Wyoming Tech, okay? You have the same amount of time to practice every day, right, in full pads. Mm-hmm. So if I have that time in full pads, what am I practicing? Am I doing Statue of Liberty plays and 2-point conversions? No, man. I'm getting the basics down.
Right.
But when I'm not in full pads, what am I doing? I'm reading the playbook, right? I'm reading my SOPs. I'm reading my training plan, right? I'm watching film, right? I'm watching brass tacks or something else, right? My company videos.
Yeah.
So there's other stuff you can be doing when you're not.
Fantastic way
when
to
you're not
paint a
full,
picture of this.
full
Yeah.
speed,
Right.
And that's what wins championships is these guys and all the extra work they're putting in beyond the minimum requirement. So like, yeah, we got our 2 hours in, we're good. We're gonna finish last in the division or whatever, or we got our 2 hours in and we're gonna finish first and we're gonna be the national champions, right? But like that comes down to our flows. It's the same thing. Is it the basic thing? Are we worried about, well, we had this one fire 18 years ago where we needed this.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Spec your system to that.
And but that's the same thing with football. Like, okay, wow, it is whatever, third overtime, and we do need the 2-point conversion, but we are masters of the basics that when you throw us a curveball, we can get over it. No big deal.
Two absolutes let me throw out, and I'm not a big absolute guy, but I'll play with this sometimes in an educational setting. If you're using anything other than 50 PSI in your big line, you're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. Whether it be fog or smoothbore, get it to 50 PSI. All you're doing is making your people work hard for no reason. Well, I won't do the second one.
Oh, okay.
Holding back.
Yeah.
All right.
We've been at it for a little over like an hour and 20 minutes.
Do we have to tell them to go home?
No, I just.
You guys gotta go
I'm not
home.
going anywhere.
All right.
Bobby,
Bobby, all right.
Bobby Eckert did like
Take
4
pauses.
hours.
Wow. Wow. No, I don't think it was that long. Listen, we could go on and so on, but I mean, we do cherish and appreciate you guys being here tonight. It means the world to us.
Oh, we appreciate the
we
opportunity.
appreciate your contribution to the fire service. What Elkhart? Wait, hold on. I got a note here. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
got it. What you guys bring to the table is incredible, and I am honored to have you guys here. And you guys are always welcome back. I'm looking forward to working on some projects maybe together down the road, some conferences, conventions,
For sure.
things like that. It'd be cool, man. It's always nice to hang with like-minded people, and tonight's one of those memories that I'm going to cherish because I learned a lot tonight. Hydraulics and pump operation. And even nozzle work is not my strongest forte, and I'll be the first guy to admit that. And so to sit around you guys tonight and to just take it all in was awesome. And I think the lesson to be learned there in what I just said was for everybody listening is it's okay not to know everything, and that's why you surround yourself
100%.
with people that know things, because you can't be an expert at everything. And if you're the guy that shies away from the engine company night because you're not confident, ask questions, get out there and learn. Go check out Brass Tacks Hard Facts online.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic resource for training and education. So, guys, thank you, Jerry and Chris.
Right, awesome. I
man,
appreciate
it was
the chance
a
to be
great
here.
night. I thank you very much, Chris. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So, guys, for Rob and myself and Jerry and Chris from Elkhart Brass, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for checking us out. National Fire Radio. Have a good night.